In this podcast episode, Gavin de Becker, a renowned security expert known for his work with some of the world's most powerful individuals and institutions, reveals candid insights on topics ranging from government secrecy, cyber vulnerabilities, and the Jeffrey Epstein case to intuition and personal safety. Drawing on decades of experience and inside knowledge, Gavin explores the intricacies of intelligence operations, the ominous scope of digital surveillance, and the complex realities underlying public narratives. The conversation also delves into how individuals might better navigate an increasingly opaque and dangerous world, both practically and psychologically. Gavin de Becker begins by highlighting a common reality in government. It is often less concerned with how to fully inform the public and more focused on controlling what is told. He makes a compelling point that skepticism is a healthy response because people are rarely told the unvarnished truth. His experience working inside government meetings revealed a pattern where narratives are spun and facts manipulated to protect institutional interests. Historical examples, including dismissals of the dangers posed by asbestos, opioids, and vaccines, serve as precedents whereby governments delay or obscure truths for decades, prioritizing political expediency over transparency. A significant portion of the podcast focuses on the fragile nature of privacy in the digital age. Gavin explains that governments and adversarial actors possess highly advanced technologies that can infiltrate personal devices without detection. He references the Israeli-made Pegasus spyware, capable of remotely accessing phones, even when they appear off, turning on cameras and microphones to surveil targets. Using the case of Jeff Bezos as an example, Gavin elaborates on how the Saudi Arabian government hacked Bezos's phone to monitor communications and exert influence, motivated by geopolitical tensions linked to the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi and economic rivalries involving Amazon. Gavin stresses that despite companies like Apple issuing security updates, this is a constant cat-and-mouse game, as exploits are rapidly discovered and weaponized by various intelligence agencies. He asserts that true confidentiality on phones is essentially unattainable when facing these capabilities, and that people must practice vigilance in their communications, acknowledging privacy as increasingly illusory. De Becker shares the nature of his company's work, emphasizing that his primary mission is anti-assassination, developing and deploying strategies to identify and prevent threats against high-profile individuals. His protective detail involves rigorous assessment, threat management, and physical security measures staffed by highly trained operatives. Confidentiality is paramount, and he famously refuses to disclose client names, though hints abound that his clientele is comprised of many globally influential figures, from government officials to royalty and celebrities, underscoring the breadth of his experience in high-stakes security environments. One of the most revealing parts of the conversation centers on Jeffrey Epstein. Gavin de Becker argues that Epstein was a constructed figure, a carefully crafted front, supported primarily by financing from billionaire Les Wexner and involved in a covert intelligence operation, most likely for Israeli interests. He dismisses Epstein's alleged billionaire status as largely an illusion, asserting that the power he wielded stemmed from secretive intelligence, backing, and access to compromising material on influential individuals. Gavin recounts chilling anecdotes from those who interacted with Epstein, including highly orchestrated blackmail scenarios involving videotaped sexual encounters with underage minors, recorded covertly by Epstein's teams using hidden cameras and audio devices placed in his New York apartment and private island. This compromising material served as a tool to dominate and manipulate politicians, executives, and other powerful figures. He further explains that Epstein's plea bargain was unusually lenient, shielding numerous unnamed co-conspirators who remain unprosecuted, supposedly based on Epstein's status as an intelligence asset. De Becker emphasizes the hesitance of the U.S. government in fully releasing documents or revealing details due to national security concerns and potential exposure of allies involved in the operations. Gavin clarifies that Epstein's network's success relied largely on fear and psychological control rather than direct threats alone. Victims and targets would be made aware, often indirectly, that indiscretions had been recorded, effectively making Epstein both the threat and the protector, enabling him to exert enormous influence without overt coercion. Jeff Bezos's public accusations against the National Enquirer and their extortion attempts, which involved personal photographs and texts, are given as a modern example of these manipulative tactics. The operation's sophistication extended to grooming and ensnaring individuals through social invitations and relationship building, with Epstein persistently courting high-profile visitors to his properties under the guise of socializing and philanthropy. The discussion extends beyond Epstein, touching upon the challenges governments face in dealing with destabilizing truths. Gavin highlights how intelligence operations across nations routinely spy on allies and how privacy is effectively non-existent among the powerful and ordinary citizens alike. He asserts that secrecy, cover-ups, and misinformation are constants in statecraft, which partly explains governmental reluctance to disclose all Epstein-related materials. He posits that this reflects a broader pattern where democracy is a small and fragile segment amid a historical norm dominated by tyranny enforced through fear and division. The cycle of empires rising and falling is ongoing, and the current Western world, led by the U.S. as an empire in decline, contends with growing social decay, polarization, and technological surveillance as tools of control. Gavin points out that while outright global war may seem unimaginable, especially with the threat of nuclear annihilation, our world is already at war in less visible ways. The ongoing conflict with Russia over Ukraine, supported materially and technologically by the U.S., is a form of warfare. He underscores that warfare now encompasses electronic, cyber, and intelligence battles that often escape public attention yet carry enormous consequence. He draws contrasts with China's more subtle form of influence expansion and suggests that history's course will continue its harsh trajectory, with two global power centers, likely the U.S. and China, eventually competing for dominance, a process marked by inevitable conflict. Beyond geopolitical and technological threats, Gavin stresses the importance of intuition and personal responsibility in protecting oneself. Drawing from his best-selling book, The Gift of Fear, he explains intuition as an innate protective mechanism rooted in evolutionary survival instincts. He encourages listening closely to these internal warning signs, feelings of suspicion, curiosity, or outright fear, as they often precede danger and guide wise decision-making. Gavin touches on the challenge many people face in trusting their gut, noting societal tendencies to doubt intuition, particularly when social pressures or politeness intrude. He offers practical advice for recognizing and acting on intuitive signals at both personal and professional levels, positing that true fear should never be ignored and that dismissing intuition can have serious consequences. Throughout the conversation, Gavin shares candid reflections on his own difficult childhood marked by trauma, addiction, and violence, underpinning his deep understanding of fear, resilience, and healing. He defines healing as releasing the energy spent managing the past to live fully in the present. Towards the end, Gavin offers philosophical insights on predetermination and the nature of existence, suggesting life is a predetermined unfolding, though humans retain the illusion or experience of free will within set parameters. He uses personal experiences in nature and teachings from spiritual mentors to support this worldview. He concludes that understanding and aligning with this flow is crucial to finding meaning and purpose. De Becker also addresses the implications of artificial intelligence, social media, and information overload on society's grasp of reality. He recognizes that AI-generated content and deepfakes blur the distinction between what is real and what is fabricated, creating a dead internet saturated with synthetic information. Far from fearing this, Gavin views it as an invitation to reevaluate what is genuinely meaningful: engagement with nature, real human connection, touch, and shared experience. He suggests this cultural reckoning with reality might foster a deeper awareness of lived truth amid manufactured content. Drawing parallels between governance and business, Gavin expresses a strong preference for subsidiarity, governance conducted at the smallest possible community level where personal accountability and contact flourish. He contrasts this with the inefficiencies and dehumanization inherent in large governments and bureaucracies. He advocates for smaller, more intimate populations, akin to traditional villages, where leaders are accessible and everyone is interconnected. This model, he argues, promotes humanity over rote process. He also describes internal corporate practices his company uses to maintain connection, such as daily surveys that track employee engagement and safety, ensuring large organizations retain a human touch. When asked about the most important advice he would offer his children or anyone about living meaningfully today, Gavin emphasizes contribution to others as essential to belonging and purpose. He also stresses the liberating realization that what is right for oneself is always right for others, freeing individuals from the burden of trying to manage others' lives. He underlines an important truth. Everything one ultimately wants is downstream, meaning aligning with natural flow and reality yields success more readily than struggling against it. Gavin recounts personal stories highlighting the power of surrender and acknowledgement over forced effort. Gavin directs interested listeners to his website for information and potential employment opportunities in his protective services company, noting that he does not solicit clients via online marketing, but is continuously hiring. Several of his books are recommended for deeper exploration of themes including fear, safety, government deceit, and child protection.